Hello, so I'm just going to show you how, as a divisional teacher or administrator, how you can create your own Elive meetings, so Elluminate live meetings within our division. So you go to the website elive.chinookssedge.ab.ca, and that will take you to the page that I am on right now. And in order for you to have people join your session, this would be the same address that you would give them, and then they would choose the meeting that is applicable for them, and they would use the password that you have provided in order to gain access to that meeting. So right now I'm going to show you how to set up the meeting, and then in a second video I will show you what Elluminate looks like once you are inside of it. So here you just sign on with the same user and password that you do to access your divisional email, and then you click on login, and it will just load to a new little page that looks exactly the same. The only thing that's changed is that it's added create a new session, which I'm going to click on. And then it's actually a quick little process. So here I go in and put the name of my meeting. Then here I put the start and end time for my meeting and the correct date. So I'd have to ensure that I am putting the right date in here. If I'm doing this a week in advance, for example, I'd have to change that. The early session access is really good to change to 30 minutes. And the reason I say that is because if you have it as 15 minutes, that's good for participants. But quite often as a meeting originator or creator, you're going to want to have access before that. So I usually change it to 30 minutes, and then that allows me to be able to go in much before my participants so I can get organized, etc. So that's where you change that. Repeat sessions is used for if you have something that's happening weekly or daily, etc. Rather than creating a whole new meeting every week, you can actually set one up so it automatically happens every week, for example. Session access is probably the most important piece in my opinion here, because it makes everything else really easy to manage. So you're going to leave the little check mark on the first box that says display on Elluminate Live manager page. You're going to leave that as a default. That is so that people, that when they go to the elive.chinookssedge.ab.ca site, they will then be able to see the name of the meeting that you had placed up above here. So that's really important that that's there. And not the general public will be able to get in, because here you're going to put a password. So I'm just going to put in a password here for this example meeting. And however, I do not click on this restrict session access, because if I do that, then I have to go through the rigmarole of having to add every single individual person, and it just creates a lot more to manage. Instead, ensure you have a password here, and then you know that only those that have the password are going to be present anyhow. The next section talks about inviting moderators and participants. And again, this is not needed because we are going to set it up this way, which is a lot easier. So again, anyone who has a password will be able to get in. You don't have to worry about going through and adding several people as participants and as moderators. This one is used for internal CESD. It has all students, teachers, staff inside there. However, if you're wanting to use external ones and you are wanting to use this feature, you would have to then go through and add individual email addresses for external participants too. So you can see how opting for this method is a lot easier to manage and takes a lot of time out of it. That's just not necessary. Number 6, the preloads, is where you can actually take your PowerPoint, for example, if you're using that, and you can load it into what they call a whiteboard file. So you can preload that so it's just ready to go and inside your presentation before your meeting starts, and you can do that right from your meeting creation, or you can do it afterwards too. It's not a problem. So here you just browse for your file and upload it, keeping in mind that PowerPoint presentations that are uploaded lose their transitions as well as their links, because it basically is taking a picture of each of your slides and inserting it so that you can see the images, but you won't have all of the other features of the PowerPoint. So that's just something to consider, because not everybody realizes that piece. Number 7, talking about session attributes. So there's lots of defaults that automatically just take place here. Most of them are not really applicable and don't really matter. Session is supervised. That's only applicable if you're using it with students. Quite often we're using these for adults, so that's a non-issue. Grant permissions on entry. That just means that you can right click on the person and decide if you want to give them moderator privilege, or else they would just come in as a participant level anyway. So it's not a big deal anyways. The raise hand on entry, I, however, would take off. And the reason being, as a moderator, if you have 20 people, for example, joining your meeting and you have that checked off, it will ding every time someone comes in and out of the room, which is extremely annoying, and it gives you one more thing to manage as a moderator, which is not necessary. And then in addition to that, when their hands raise on entry, and in addition to the ding, you have to either manually put down the hand yourself, or else you have to ask them to put their hand down. So it's just another piece that's just a little bit annoying in my opinion. So it's totally up to you if you want to use that or not, but I would suggest not. The next one that's important is about this simultaneous speakers. So generally speaking, the larger the meeting, you're going to have probably just one person that's going to be speaking at a time. So that means that as a participant is speaking, then they have to release their microphone in order for someone else to speak. And that usually is the best flow for a larger meeting. However, if you're having a more informal meeting or discussion, by changing this so that maybe you have 2 or 3 simultaneous speakers, you can have a more real conversation. So you can actually hear feedback as you're speaking, etc., versus one person talking, feeling like they're doing a screencast, for example, and not having someone to communicate back with in a timely manner. So it's just up to you, and you'll play with that and kind of see how that works in time. Session accounting is not applicable for us because we do not obviously charge for our Elluminate sessions. Session recording is the next important one. So here it gives you the option if you want to hide attendee names. So for example, if you're having a meeting and you want to keep confidentiality of the participants who were in that meeting, you would click on that before you set up the meeting, and then the recorded session would show, it would not show rather all of the participants. It would only have the conversations and the things that were displayed. It would not have the individual names of every participant. So it would look like no one's in the meeting room, but you could hear conversations. The session recording automatically is set so that it will start automatically. I always change that to manual, because otherwise the second that you go into your meeting, and you might be there again half an hour before it starts, as soon as you enter that room, it will start to record your session. So you don't want a whole lot of junk at the beginning of your session. You want to ensure that you're only recording the important pieces. So when you're ready to record, you would click on the bottom left-hand screen, the red button, and it would record. When you're done, you click on stop. So I'll show you that on the second part of the video, but I would suggest changing that to manual. The recording video, you can actually use a video in it also, but I have had issues with that, so I don't use it very often. It does affect the bandwidth, and the finer the medium chosen, then the more bandwidth it takes, and also the color takes more bandwidth too. So I generally avoid that unless it's needed, which usually it's not a big deal. Session notes, you can type little notes to session participants if you want to, but you can share in so many other ways once you're in the meeting too, so that's not used a whole lot either. So that's it. Then you go to the bottom right hand corner where it says create, and then it creates your actual meeting, which will put it onto the front page of the elive.chinooksedge.ab.ca address or webpage. And so here, for those people that do like to send session links, they are here. Again, I would avoid that. It's just easier to send them right to the source. They choose on the name of the meeting, they have the password, and they're ready to go. Quite often they think that this is spam, and they don't look at it anyway, so it just ends up taking more time also. Again, that's what this is referring to. So instead, I'm going to go right to session schedule, which takes me back to the main page, and you're going to see the PLP meeting that I created here. So I have this one right here that I created as a sample. It shows that it's locked. So if I were logged out, I would not be able to access this without the password. So I chose the password as Valentine. So in this case, now this is where you would guide your participants again to this address up the top. You can disregard the index part. They just need to know up to the CA. They would click on the name of the meeting. And because I am signed in and I'm the person that created the meeting, it's just going to start automatically. But this is where your participants would be prompted to put in their email address, their first and last name, and they would then have to have the access code for the meeting. They would plunk that in. That's not showing for me right now because I'm the person that created it. If this happens, it says to protect yourself and your security, etc., etc., download the file. So here's where you would have to click on that. So I'm going to do that again because something happened that was strange there. Okay, so now I click on here and I download the file. That's just to make sure that it is something you actually want to download. And now it's loading my Elive. So it's going to go through a few series of allow, etc. It's going to load my Java. Another screen is going to come up shortly where it's going to ask me to run the program. And I then continue to run the program. And now you can see how it's initiating the Elive. It's about to open up the meeting for me. And I'm on a dual screen here, so I'm going to instead move it so that you can see it. And so this shows the window. In my next segment, I'm going to go through and show the different components of this because that meeting setup was quite lengthy already. So I will go through how this works and how you manage people in that. So thank you. Hopefully that helps you know how to set up a meeting and also how to get participants to it.